Hello everyone and welcome back guys to Season 2 of the F1 2019 HAAS Road to Glory career mode, where today we're here for pre-season testing and driver transfer news heading into Season 2 of the Road to Glory. And well, we'll just be doing a quick rundown of every single team from F1 2019 and have a look at who has swapped and who has gone where, who's joining the sport, who's leaving, everything like that. And obviously we kick things off with the Constructors World Champions Ferrari from F1 2019 Season 1. Obviously a good season by them. Sebastian Vettel very unfortunate to miss out on the world title by just 9 points to Lewis Hamilton at the end of the day after a very strong second half to their World Championship. But coming into 2019, Ferrari keeping it simple once again, Season 2, keeping their lineup of Charles Leclerc and Sebastian Vettel, looking to try and go back-to-back in the Constructors and obviously go one better in the Drivers' World Championship as well. It was a very consistent season by both of their drivers, and I'm sure they'll be looking for more as they head into the new season as well. Going to be exciting to see whether they can maintain that World Championship form. Obviously a very consistent car over the course of last season. You know, the upgrades, a lot of teams look to be piling on the pressure ready for this new season. Whether Ferrari will remain right at the top, you know, alongside Mercedes and Red Bull, we will have to wait and see. But yeah, Ferrari locking down their lineup. Charles Leclerc, obviously their young wonder kid, and Sebastian Vettel looking finally for that Ferrari glory. You know, he wants that Drivers' World Championship in the Ferrari car and is desperate for his 5th Formula 1 world title. Moving on though to Mercedes, obviously Lewis Hamilton, the F1 2019 Season 1 Drivers' World Champion. Unfortunate for the team, obviously they were a little bit gutted they couldn't wrap up 6 double world titles in a row, obviously, after losing out in the Constructors' World Championship, I even should say. They've made drastic changes in the form of Pierre Gasly, a direct swap between Red Bull and Mercedes. Gasly has gone to Mercedes and Valtteri Bottas has gone to Red Bull there to team up, obviously, with Max Verstappen. Gasly, though, it'll be an interesting season to see how he fares. You know, in a car that can fight for Grand Prix victories, usually, obviously, most weekends, you know, how he'll fare with that pressure is really a lot of the time last season. He wasn't quite at the front, you know, how he's going to stack up to now 6-time Formula 1 World Champion Lewis Hamilton. It'll be an exciting prospect to see what the Frenchman can achieve in that car alongside Lewis Hamilton. You know, Mercedes, they know exactly what they want this season. They want to get back on the top step in both World Championships. Hamilton undoubtedly is looking for World Championship number 7 to try and equal out Michael Schumacher's record in the sport as well. Whether he'll get that, we'll have to wait and see. Obviously another 21 round calendar ahead of us once again. Obviously it'll be interesting to see how they fare. But yeah, Mercedes, they want redemption after a little bit of an unfortunate 2019 Season 1. You know, a few reliability issues really did cost them in the end for that Constructors' World Championship. But yeah, Mercedes, like I said, looking for the double. Moving on then to Red Bull, and well, obviously I already explained their driver lineup. Obviously the direct swap between Mercedes and Red Bull. Obviously Pierre Gasly for Valtteri Bottas, the number 2 drivers making the switch for F1 2019 Season 2. And I'll be honest, this is probably a driver pairing that I'm really excited to see. You know, Bottas, he's proven himself. You know, he's proven time and time again he can fight with the Formula 1 World Champion Lewis Hamilton, but whether he can do it consistently over a season is a very different question. Red Bull really did pile on the performance in towards the final third of the season last year, obviously breaking that gap to Ferrari and Mercedes at the top, and obviously 2 World Championship victories last year, right? Max Verstappen 5th in the Drivers' World Championship with Pierre Gasly 6th. They'll be looking to try and bring up closer and potentially even fight for that world title once again. You know, the partnership with Honda seemed to be a good building block in 2019 Season 1, and obviously I'm sure they'll be looking for further performance to be found in Season 2 as well. Obviously the aim, probably more consistent race victories. Whether they'll be able to fight for the World Championship will be a different question, but I think consistency will absolutely be key. They had a lot of races last year where they were at least fighting towards the front, but this time around, you know, it needs to be pretty much every weekend, week in, week out, as well as obviously hoping they can build a bit of a better power unit, you know, make those continue the progress they've made with Honda and everything like that. And yeah, like I said, this lineup is certainly one that I'm very excited for. Max Verstappen being tested hopefully a bit more than he did by Pierre Gasly. But yeah, a very interesting swap between Mercedes and Red Bull there. Moving on further down the grid though, we do move on to the 4th place team at the end of last season, Racing Point. Obviously a good year for them. You know, some driver transfers came in midway through. Obviously they brought back Nico Hülkenberg after Lucas Weber was bought out by Renault, and obviously Lance Stroll nowhere to be seen with SP Score Racing Point Force India, obviously, although his dad is the owner of the team. And going into the new season, they're not looking to obviously make any more changes. They're quite happy with their lineup. Hülkenberg scored good consistent points last year, and Sergio Perez obviously a long-standing member of the team. Obviously, consistency has been key, and they'll be looking certainly to try and bridge the gap to the top 3 big teams, but also try and look to hold on to their P4 in the in the Constructors World Championship. Even, I should say, consistency was key for them last year. There was never really an off weekend it came across for Racing Point. They always seem to be consistently right around the points, and obviously after a really, really strong Abu Dhabi Grand Prix as well, 4th and 6th place, they were better than Red Bull in that last round of the season. Clearly a lot of pace still to be extracted from that car as we move into the new season. But yeah, Racing Point keeping their lineup. It's certainly going to be exciting to see what they can do, though. Certainly a huge amount of development that went into that car last year, to maintain best of the rest, even through a lot of uncertainty, obviously, through 2018 as well. And yeah, an exciting prospect. Hulkenberg and Perez obviously back together. We sort of saw it through a lot of last season. But over the course of a full season, it's really, really going to be interesting to see how these two stack up as well. Moving on, though, on to HAAS, and obviously my personal team as well for the new season. Obviously, a lot of you guys seem to think that I might be leaving HAAS. I've explained this in a few videos now. I will not be leaving HAAS. The aim is to win the world title and everything like that. But yeah, HAAS maintain our lineup as well, although Grosjean, I was a bit surprised, honestly, kept his seat after he finished 100 points behind me at the end of last season. 5th place in the Constructors, and Grosjean did seem to get better as the car got worse. He was certainly a lot closer to me in the latest rounds of the season, and we've really sort of seen in the first half of the year. But yeah, keeping our lineup of myself and Grosjean. Clearly don't want to go for too many risky strategies. I'm a little bit surprised, but did potentially see Kevin Magnussen coming alongside me, as potentially he could have been a stronger option as well, considering Grosjean still, albeit having some better results towards the end of the season. They weren't points finishes, as obviously this car really did start to slip down the order. 2019, though, Season 2 is certainly going to be a bit of a rebuild for us. We've worked out what the issues were with the car relative to the rest of the field, and although, those upgrades aren't going to be on in Australia, certainly the first couple of rounds of the year are going to be difficult, but we have got a huge budget to try and spend on upgrades to this car as well, which, is absolutely critical, and we will hopefully be making a bit of a resurgence throughout this season after very much sort of a stagnant last season. We were lucky really to hold on to P5 after just such a strong first half of the championship from myself there. Unfortunately, yeah, the second half we really, really struggled, and certainly looking forward to hopefully a bit of a resurgence this year. Lots of R&D points, lots of upgrades going on to this car. We really, really do need to try and get back up, fighting towards the front of the midfield. Talking about fighting towards the front of the midfield, though, it would also be Renault. After a bit of a disappointing season last year, obviously finishing all the way down in 6th in the Constructors World Championship, I'm sure they're looking to try and bring back some more consistent, top 10s. They want to be 4th or 5th at the very least in the World Championship. They've always come out with plans. They want to be fighting Red Bull, Mercedes and Ferrari at the top. And, well, once again, they've decided to keep their lineup of, obviously, our two F2 rivals, Lucas Weber and Devon Butler. Obviously, they want to keep those guys. And, Lucas and Devon both doing very, very well last season. Certainly a bit of a weird matchup, even, I should say. Between these two, it's certainly been an exciting lineup, and it's always been interesting, sort of on a more personal level to, compare these two as well. There's a lot of talks about how quick Weber is in comparison to Butler on this game, and, well, we've certainly seen so far Weber, albeit a bit quicker than Devon Butler, he can certainly mark his own as well. But yeah, Renault, they desperately want to get back up towards the front of the field, and looking at the performances we head into Season 2, they look like they could honestly be fighting for race victories. Quite a few teams do. Really has been a shake-up as we head in towards the new rule changes as well with the engines. The engine changes seem to have really suited Renault, and yeah, it's going to be exciting to see how they fare over the course of the new season. But they want to be fighting at least at the top of the midfield, ideally bridging that gap to the front runners as well. It's certainly going to be exciting to see how they fare with obviously two very, very feisty drivers that still looking to try and prove themselves in the world of Formula 1 to try and move up towards the front of the field. And then we move on, honestly, I think, to my favourite driver pairing for the 2019 Season 2. Lando Norris has gone to Williams alongside George Russell, the British super team, I'm trying to call it, for the new season. Whether that will be the case, we will have to wait and see. But yeah, Lando Norris moving from McLaren after a very, very rough season. Williams, though, made a huge amount of progress last year. They went from bottom of the grid to arguably the 4th or 5th best car. It was very, very close between them and Racing Point by the end of the season. They did recover all the way up to P7 at the end of the World Championship, and George Russell was a big, big factor in that. Robert Kubica has retired now from Formula 1. Whether we'll see him return again, maybe in 8 years' time, we will have to wait and see. about that one. But yeah, George Russell and Lando Norris, a young British lineup, obviously fought for the F2 World Championship back in 2018. It's certainly going to be exciting to see how these two stack up in the same car, and especially in a Williams team that is constantly evolving at the moment. Maybe, just maybe, we could see British drivers, a British car, everything like that. I'd love to see these guys, fighting Lewis Hamilton, have all the Brits right towards the front of the World Championship. But obviously we also need Devon Butler as well to be right up there as well. But yeah, Williams coming into the new season, they need to continue their very, very aggressive approach to Formula 1 at the moment, piling on the upgrades, everything like that, and they, I can easily see Williams win the World Championship on F1 2019 with the progress they've made so far, and it's certainly, with those two drivers, going to be a very, very exciting prospect that I hope you guys are excited for just as much as I am. The final driver transfers, though, coming at McLaren, and the big shock to me, obviously, Lance Stroll has replaced Lando Norris at McLaren. Obviously, Norris did make the decision to go to Williams, and then Lance Stroll was brought in, but he will be joining Carlos Sainz at McLaren. Certainly not a move that I was expecting, I'll be honest, once Hulkenberg had obviously got into SP Score Racing Point Force India. I had kind of forgot Lance Stroll exists. He's had a very mediocre season in real-life Formula 1 as well. And, going into McLaren, that's going to be an interesting mix. McLaren have really, really struggled still. There was a lot of talks about a resurgence in 2019. And although we saw it at the start of the year, they really, really did taper off towards the end of the year. And really, apart from Toro Rosso, they looked more often than not the weakest car on the grid by the end of the World Championship. And whether Lance Stroll, the huge amount of money he brings in, or maybe not now, as the case may be, obviously with his dad running a Racing Point, it's certainly going to be interesting to see what McLaren could do, because, well, they need a bit of a resurgence as well. They need to follow in Williams' footsteps, British engineering at its best, everything like that, and really try and bring that car back up towards the front of the field once more. Carlos Sainz had a very, very poor 2019 Season 1. I'm honestly a bit surprised that he wasn't dropped either. I think he was the last of the point scorers, finishing P17 in the Drivers' World Championship with just 3 points at the end of the year there. But I think, with Lando out the door, they probably needed a bit of consistency, a bit of stability in that team as well. And yeah, McLaren, they need a resurgence. They need to be back into the points very, very quickly. We move though on to Alfa Romeo Sauber, and a bit of a mediocre season by them, sadly. Didn't quite get the performance upgrades and everything like that they really, really hoped for. But they have maintained their lineup of Kimi Raikkonen and Antonio Giovinazzi all the way down in P9 at the end of last World Championship after, well, they were all points scored by Raikkonen, 13 at the end of the year for them. Obviously, Antonio Giovinazzi joining Toro Rosso drivers on 0 points at the end of the day. But, Ferrari development driver, everything like that, they do really want to try and keep him in that seat, while Raikkonen hangs around for yet another year in Formula 1. It's crazy to think how long he's been in the sport now. And, well, potentially, I'm a bit sceptical that we're going to see Alfa Romeo make a bit of a resurgence in at least the early stages of the season. It looks like it's a bit more of a long-term development plan by Alfa Romeo, so yeah, it's certainly going to be exciting to see what they can do. But I think for them, at the moment, they just need to try and build up a bit more consistency, build up a bit more pace in that car. A bit like us, it doesn't really seem like they haven't got a particular weakness, just neither really a particular strength as well, which is, yeah, really, they're in a very similar position to HAAS, but just with a little bit weaker performance as well. They need to be back up towards the points in this season, and it's certainly going to be exciting to see what they can do. Obviously, with the experience of Kimi Raikkonen, whether they can try and get a few more points on the board once again and try and build themselves up at least closer once again to the midfield as we head through this season. It'll certainly be different and difficult to see what they can try and do in the 2019 Season 2 World Championship. But moving on then, last and well least, at the end of last year, Toro Rosso, a very, very rough season for them. 0 points at the end of the World Championship. But, it's just a development team for, obviously, as I'm sure you guys are well aware at this point, the development program for Red Bull. Obviously, Alexander Albon and Danny Kvyat, it's a bit difficult to judge where it was just them and Antonio Giovinazzi that didn't score points at the end of last season. They probably didn't quite extract everything out of the car, but it also wasn't really a car that, was ever really looking like it was going to score points. They had a couple of near misses to the points, but I think, Giovinazzi's 11th place, I think it was, at Japan, or 12th, really, yeah, obviously just meant there was no real chance that they were going to be able to score, at least finish not even at the bottom of the World Championship. They needed a bit of a resurgence in Season 2, try and get some of those Red Bull parts on the car and just build this car back up, because, well, they need to see how Alexander Albon and Danny Kvyat will fare fighting up towards the point, the pressure towards, a bit higher up the field as well. It'll be certainly interesting to see how they fare. But that is it then for the driver lineup. A very, very exciting season we are approaching into. Like I said, some big moves obviously between Mercedes and Red Bull. Lando Norris as well. I'm really, really excited to see how he fares in the Williams, and obviously Robert Kubica at the Sport now as well. Lance Stroll is back, and yeah, I'm really, really excited for the new season. Hopefully you guys are as well. Episode 1, the Australian Grand Prix, will be going live tomorrow, Saturday the 13th of July. But thank you all so much for watching this video. Get yourself subscribed if you're new around here. Let me know which teams you are hyped for the new season. But that'll do us for this one, and I will hopefully see you guys next time for another video.